Hello, hello, hello. I am Sam Keeney, the Central Wyoming College Librarian, and I'm here to talk to you about Open Education Week, which, fortunately for us, Open Education Week allows us to introduce the larger conversation of open education resources. So let's talk about what that is, what it means, and how it can be beneficial for our students. So my goals for this session are that ideally at the end, we'll be able to define open education, know what Open Education Week is, define open education resources, OERs, describe the benefits of OER for our students and our faculty, identify common places to search for high quality OER. I hope are all aware that in academia, not all things and all resources for our students are created equal. And how do we identify, support, finding, creating, or adapting OER? So let's get to it. So what is open education? Historically, I would argue that libraries are a source of open education. They have been one of the long-term providers for information for the population. More modernly, open education encompasses resources, tools, and practices that are free of restrictive copyrights and can be fully used, shared, and adapted. These things are typically, but not exclusively, digital. So this second picture that I have, you have some examples of OER textbooks, videos that can be found on the internet, electronic information, and even handouts that have been created and produced for free use, or things that are open access. To me, open education is kind of the ideal internet scenario. The internet is a great way for us to become more informed, better consumers, and just better aware of what is going on in the world around us. It's a great resource for educating ourselves. So it's kind of, to me, it's the internet ideal and builds upon the foundation of what libraries have historically been. So to that regard, there's a whole week dedicated to talking about and promoting open education. It is typically the first full week of March, so it starts next Monday. There are currently 227 events that will be hosted by 127 different institutions from around the world. So there's something for everyone. And in the spirit of open education and libraries, things are free. So you may have to sign into something or register, but the information provided to you is free. Most things are also going to be accessible for at least a year. So you have the opportunity to be able to refer back to that information. Just super helpful. So that's Open Education Week. I have here a sampling of the upcoming events next week that specifically are either for or being provided by community colleges. This is also not the full list of what's being offered for and by community colleges. It's just a handful of the offerings. So if any of these are of interest to you, the links on here are clickable, and the information is in the email that you accessed this video through. So general opening question. Think about a time, most of us, I feel, have probably run into this situation where students we know have struggled to afford textbooks and or supplies for their classes. I have a couple of quick examples that I can share from what we see here in the library. So these are just some general conversations that we have had with students, both for textbook resources, laptops. If you're not aware, the library provides laptops that students can check out for a full semester. If they continue to take classes, they can continue to check out that laptop. Jackson and Lander also have laptops that they are able to provide for students. We unfortunately ran out at the beginning of this school year. And so we had some students who ended up having to go different avenues. And so for one, their grant was able to buy a laptop for them. So these are just some general examples. I do want to highlight this second one, which says, I'd rather have a physical book. So there have been a handful of studies, and more studies are coming out, including some metadata ones, that show that students get better retention for information, digital versus print, or reverse, print versus digital. And that is something to kind of keep in mind as more and more things go online and are available online or exclusively online. Keeping in mind how students learn best, their ability to refer to different texts, especially if they are able to refer to something physical when they're doing class assignments that are online and being submitted virtually. So something for us to keep in mind. So a potential solution for that is open educational resources, OERs. And it is a solution, not the solution. However, OERs, to give a more condensed definition than what I gave earlier, are free reduced cost teaching and learning materials with the Creative Commons licensing. This provides faculty with the freedom to revise and reuse. So that Creative Commons licensing is really important and is key to the whole OER discussion. So these can be entire textbooks, but also videos, quizzes, learning modules, and more that are, if you're familiar with the website Teachers Pay Teachers, it's like in some instances, it's like a free version of Teachers Pay Teachers. So a teacher has produced information and is just freely distributing it. No paywalls, things like that. And these can be digital, but they can also typically be found in a hard copy as well. So Creative Commons is a nonprofit that creates licenses to help people who want to share copyrighted intellectual property. So the goal is that I can create information, I can still have it copyrighted, but it is with the caveat that I still get credit for the thing that I have created, but somebody else is allowed to take that and make it better suited for their students, make it better suited for their community, make it so that it is best applicable to the population being served. One of the key ways to tell is you have your traditional single C in a circle, all rights reserved copyright logo. And then the Creative Commons licensing is this smaller double C, which means that it has some rights reserved. And don't get it confused with the CC and the square for closed captioning. So, like I kind of mentioned, with Creative Commons licenses, you are still free to copy that information, mix and match the information, share it, edit it, use it, and what can be very important for our students is to keep that information. So if they are in a program that's going to be their career, they are able to get that academic information and keep it at low to no cost, and be able to refer back to it as they continue their studies and as they continue into their career. So why do we care? Why should we use OER? And a couple of reasons. So it can come in a variety of formats, which is helpful for our students so they can choose the content in the format that works best for them. So if they want everything digitally online, great, they can have it all digitally online. If they would prefer something to be downloadable, great, we can make that happen. If they want something that's print, that can happen also. So there's just different ways that we can help support our students. There's also good OER will be able to cater to a student's diverse needs as well. So do they need to be able to change the font so it's dyslexic friendly? Do they need to be able to highlight? Do they need something that's read aloud? So those are some of the reasons that why we should care. We should also care because textbook costs and costs for students keep going up. We even see that here at CWC. We are very affordable comparatively, but at the end of the day, a full-time student, so I've based this on a student taking 12 credits from our CWC data, is paying $5,344 just for tuition, the fees that are attached to those tuition credits, not tuition, the fees that are attached to credit hours, and the average cost that we have for students for books and supplies. And that doesn't take into account any additional bills that they have, room and board. This also isn't taking into account scholarships and financial aid, but not all of our students qualify for those things. Or sometimes they're waiting on those disbursements, and they have to make choices while they're waiting for those disbursements about how they spend their money. So again, average annual cost of textbooks is going up. This graph shows both 2-year and 4-year institutions and those increases. It's been trending up. You will notice that the most recent year we had a slight drop. So it'll be interesting to see how this data continues to change. Part of what we think we're seeing is that the cost of textbooks is coming down in relation to the print costs. So you have a lot of publishers that are going and pushing more of the digital, and you have publishers that are doing more of the loose leaf. And so those things are cheaper on the front end and cheaper for the publisher. However, they are not always cheaper for the student in the long run. And part of that is because if I get something that's loose leaf, I can't resell it. So there's pros and cons to everything. The average cost of students spending money on course materials is going down. So the cost of textbooks is trending up, but the money that students have and are able to and willing to spend on course materials is trending downward. Some caveats to this is that we have 1 in 4 students that are renting materials for class, and so that rental cost is lower. But we also have 1 in 4 students who are not purchasing their course materials, and so that's a detriment to their academic progress. They have to go to the course and figure out how relevant is the text to the class that I am taking. Can I get by without it? I know that as a student, I made that choice a couple of times where I opted to not purchase the textbook because I felt I could get away without it. So is OER a magic bullet to help students with this? Unfortunately, no. It is not the solution, but is a piece of the solution. So currently, some options here. We have OER is a piece to the solution to help bring costs down for students. IA is our institutional access codes. Potential solution, helpful piece to the solution is our community college consortium standardization for gen ed textbooks, and utilizing our CWC resources. So that also means what materials are freely available for students in the library, what materials can be found through the databases that CWC is already paying for, and using those resources wisely to, we've already spent the money, let's pass the savings of that money on to students. Let's spend the money just once. Some conversation of OER versus inclusive access. Again, these are 2 potential pieces to the solution of helping reduce the cost of college for our students. But OER is created by educators and scholars. It is typically Down at the bottom, we talk about vetting. So created by educators and scholars. There's a peer review process that kind of goes into that. A lot of the times these things are also being published by university publishers. So there's that additional layer of things can be edited and things are getting reviewed again and things are starting to make sense. Clear communication to students is required across the board and in as we know in numerous formats, in numerous ways, we have to communicate to our students so they understand the process of accessing things, so they understand the resources that are available to them. OER can be a little bit more work on the front end, especially if you are creating it, if you are finding something and tweaking it. But it has the opportunity to be opted into. And those faculty who, at other colleges that I've spoken with, who end up taking the time and doing OER, find that you're able to create something that best fits your teaching style and the learning style of your students. You're able to pull in examples from the local community. You are able to make sure that you have your students represented. So these are some pros, but there are also cons on this list as well. With Inclusive Access, it's typically created by publishers. All rights are reserved, so you don't necessarily have the capability to tweak, edit, modify. Here in the library, we have to monitor students as they are scanning chapters of textbooks to make sure that we are like removing a chapter before we scan a new chapter, only scanning one chapter at a time, things like that, for making sure that we're staying compliant with copyright issues. Inclusive Access typically has everything included, so everything is included for both the student and sometimes, excuse me, and things can also be included for faculty. So slideshows may be created already, assignments, things like that. The cost savings with Inclusive Access is typically when you compare the price of the printed material versus the digital material. Currently, students have to opt out of the Inclusive Access model for the majority of campuses. There is legislation that's advocating for a student opt-in model as the default. And the information for Inclusive Access is typically vetted because it's coming from the publishers. So pros and cons, more information here and in the links in the speaker notes, because the slides are also in the email that you access this video through. So OER, cool and all. How do we find it? So there's a variety of different ways. I have 3 options here. There are far more options than what I will be talking about today, but I just want to highlight a couple of them. So there's the Open Textbook Network, and it on its front page highlights both books that have just been produced and then books that are also coming soon. And you can see with some of these ones that are coming soon, this has been published by the Iowa State University Digital Press. So Iowa State University has published a handful of these, Virginia Tech Publishing. So again, these are being developed by and for and with our, academic colleagues throughout the US. So that is pretty nice. I can also, if I click into one of these, it's going to tell me what different formats are available. So I can do PDF, there's an ebook format, and it's just available online. I get a view of the table of contents. If other people have used it, there will be reviews. Since this one has just come out, it's possible that nobody else has used this book yet, outside of the people who have published it. But these are just some general options that exist. And I encourage you to do some more exploring. I'm going to go back to the slide. OpenStax is a huge resource for OER and for textbooks. I'm going to click into this and it's going to take me to the bookstore pricing list. So if I want to purchase things in print to have available to students who want physical copies, let me make this bigger for you. Take a look at these prices and compare these to what some of your textbook prices are that students would have to purchase. I would also be curious what the cost is if students took a file to the print shop down the road and had something printed that way compared to the bookstore printing. That's just me being curious. So that's, I find interesting. And then OER Commons is a really huge conglomeration of a couple of different OER providers. And so here I get lots of different options. So I can type in something that I'm looking for. I can search by subject. I'm going to go ahead and I only want to search for community college level. And I'm going to go ahead and hit search. And it's going to take a second, but I get 10,000 results. Nothing to sneeze at. Now, if I want to look at what they have for nursing, I can go subject area under applied science, health, medicine, and nursing. And there's a couple, well, there's search results are 1,143 options. And in here, I also see this 2023 Compendium of North American Nursing OER, which is provided by Cambrian College. And what they have done, I'm going to click into this, is they have gone through and they have pulled together 25 different resources that are designed to support student learning, particularly within nursing programs. So they've kind of started to do, they're working on doing this legwork for their nursing program, making things OER usable for their students. And instead of keeping that to themselves, they have created this document and they're sharing it with other people who are interested in pursuing this. So that's one of the other really nice things about the OER community is people are trying to help out. So I'm doing this work. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Let me share the work that I've done so we can build something better together. So those are a couple of different resources. This is the just a screenshot of the Center for Computer Assisted Legal Instruction. Our poli-sci and law students have the highest average course costs. So second is nursing, and these are nationwide numbers. But typically for lawyers, they are buying things that they're going to continue to refer back to. But this is a collection of a number of law schools in the country. They are updating these books regularly and they're getting together to try to reduce that burden of cost on the students. So that's another potential resource. Some additional resources to look at are these here. These links are clickable. If you want to open the actual slides that are included with the email of this video. But also you can go into Canvas and see what's available. So if I go up here, might have some outstanding assignments. I apologize. If I open Canvas, give it a second. And then I'm going to click into the Commons. And then I'm going to type up here just OER and see what I get. And I get 2,659 results with OER. And so from here, I can filter, I can sort, I can look for something specific, a specific OER subject, and then I can work on porting these into my shell and editing them, and how is it most applicable for my class, and the things that I need. So that's another option. So OER has some additional benefits, which is providing alternate access to content. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but these are things to also look for. So are there multiple editable file formats, and what ways do those file formats present themselves? The great thing about something being at its base a PDF is that there's still the ability to usually highlight and copy and paste, which can be helpful for our students. Do the images include alternate text or descriptions that convey the purpose of the image based on its content? We have students who really enjoy more images in their instructional materials, but we also have students who are low to no vision, are colorblind. And so how do we figure out if this image heavy text is going to meet the needs of our students? And that's one way is to look for those things. Do videos have captions and or transcripts, and are they actually vetted captions and transcripts, or is it just the auto-generated information? And then the tables, are they used for information or for layout? And how easily readable are those tables to all students? So things to look for. One of the other things that you can look at is, so is the book only available in a PDF? Are there multiple file formats? And this even includes like a printable PDF. So you have like your digital, your print PDF. So it's already formatted for, oh, this chapter, sometimes that can be very helpful for a student. I'm having a hard time digesting this chapter. Let me download it and read it physically. And I can highlight it, I can mark it up. And then typically the research is showing that can be more beneficial for the student and help them understand that material better when they are able to do that. So those are things to be looking for. There's also a bunch of accessibility checklists and toolkits that can be used for when you are reviewing OER information, which is also helpful when we're reviewing our digital textbooks. Things to be keeping in mind when we're reviewing our inclusive access books. Are these things at the best discoverability and accessibility for our students? Okay, do want to make a note. As a librarian, I have a slight bias towards OER, so I want to make that clear, but also I've tried very hard to find resources that show both like the pros and cons of OER, pros and cons of inclusive access, and all of that information is in the slide notes. But if you feel like I was leaning a little bit too hard one way, the goal of the topic is talking about OER and its benefits. And two, I've tried to be aware of my confirmation bias and seek resources diligently and broadly. I would be a very bad librarian if I didn't address that. So potential next steps. One is having conversations here at CWC about, is OER a useful tool for our students? Is it something that would be beneficial? Are there ways that we can use it? How would we go about doing that? Some colleges institute mini grants. So for faculty that develop OER, they get like a little slush fund, a little stipend. Working with the library, our instructional design folks, to create OER. Also in general, if you were trying to find resources for your classes, be it research articles, you need to vet books, things like that. That is very much within the wheelhouse of the CWC library. So please feel free to come to us with any of those questions. I did not spell it right, so I apologize in advance. Potential outcome for Santi grants. Open pedagogy is also another conversation that's had in conjunction with OER, where faculty and students are working to create course materials, and then they share that information, and that could be an interesting outcome for our Santi grants and the our student research opportunities that are happening on campus. Developing a bookstore advisory committee, which includes students. So what do students have to say about the bookstore, about pricing, about what's available to them? This might exist already. I didn't find anything, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So I apologize if it does already exist. And then also surveying students regarding textbook supply, textbook costs, supply costs. We're doing a impromptu, informal survey in the library, both online, and we've got one of our whiteboards set up with a couple of questions regarding textbook costs for students. So thank you so much for your time. Please contact me with any questions or comments. Please look at the offerings that are being provided for OER Week or Open Ed Week. The really great thing about Open Ed is that typically you can always refer back to it, so you can sign up for something and then you'll get the link, or it'll be on YouTube a couple of days afterwards if you don't have time to sit during the presentation. So thank you again. Have a great rest of your Friday.